What is up? I'm Miguel Antonio, and you are listening to the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. And before we jump into the podcast today, I'd love for you to check out my band, Run With It. Here's a clip from our song, One More Fight.
We can get free from our fear inside by staring down the night. A deeper breath and start to climb. One more step and one more fight. One more time. One more time. Open eyes and open sky.
If you like what you heard, make sure you check us out at Run With It Band, at Run With It Band, everywhere you follow people at, or go to runwithitband.net. It'll take you to all the different links you want to go to, and it'll be a little button you can click for booking information. Now for today's podcast.
The Live and Create podcast.
Well, dude, so yeah, last time we talked, it was it about a year ago, I think.
I think it was maybe
Somewhere
over a
around
year ago, actually, now. But it was
year and a half, something like that.
Yeah, not quite 2 years. So,
well, and I know you were in this stage of rebuilding your band and going in new directions. I know you were taking classes in sound, you were taking classes in songwriting, and over the last year, you know, just keeping in touch and then watching you online, it's been really cool to see how things seem like things are clicking for you and growing and kind of surpassing where you were in the past as well. And so that was one reason I reached out to you too. Just, it's always great hanging out. For the listener, we got to do a show together, last minute show where we got double booked, and it was both of us, and the venue said they pay us both the same rate if we want to do duo. We're like, hell yeah, let's go.
That's a sweet deal. Yeah.
And it was a fun night, man. I really enjoyed that night. And even that night, realizing it sounds like you're also on this journey of health, like all around health. And even it sounded like maybe getting sober as well, like no alcohol, or at least lower alcohol. I wasn't quite sure on that, but man, yeah. So you've been on a journey. And so I'm just curious what that's been like, you know, from the last time we spoke via the podcast.
Definitely. It's been a wild journey since the last time we spoke. I think at that time, like you said, I was taking some classes at Johnson County Community College, and then I was also in a songwriting program through Berkeley. So I was doing a lot of schooling at the time. I was gigging really heavily, working on like developing my band, trying to get into the wedding industry, you know, had my hand in like irons in a lot of different fires, or a lot of irons in the fire with the band in that regard. And then, like I said, I was also kind of on my own personal journey with getting sober, just trying to work on myself as a person, you know, trying to get a little bit closer to God, all those things. And so, man, over the last year, it's been a wild ride, man. At the beginning of the year, I had, you know, a complete turnover of my band. All of my band members went and did their own thing, started a new band, and I was kind of left without anybody. And I had to kind of rebuild the band. And that was a super hard time for me, man, because looking back, basically, when I started this band, like I started doing original music, and my intent was like, I really just want to go as hard as I possibly can. And I want to get to the top, and I want to, you know, write my own songs and live the dream, as they say, you know. And I think I developed this like, and that's what we all get into it for, I think, at least most of us. And I think I developed this like drive in this sense of like, just go, 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 go all the time. And that worked for a while, especially when it was like not my career, when it was like something I did on the side. I could kind of like go with it as a side project, you know, while also focusing on like my actual regular job. So I had some kind of balance with that. But when when COVID happened and my band kind of fell apart for the first time, my original project kind of fell apart. I started this cover band with Caleb Rivera, who I had him come down from Salina, Kansas. He moved in with me. And then Maddie Ogden, who she was singing in another band kind of at the time. And her band had also kind of during COVID, like everybody decided they were going to kind of go separate ways. So we all decided we were going to start a cover band up. And yeah, for the next like year, I'd say we worked on that band, and we had some really good times, but it was like kind of just the party band at that point, where we were all together kind of in a new thing, fresh out of COVID, like just kind of like, let's go out to the bars, let's play, let's have a good time, you know? And
Or let's go anywhere.
anywhere and everywhere, we'll take whatever pay. It doesn't even matter.
Exactly.
Like if they want to give us $50 and they're going to let us drink all night and have some food, like we will come play. Absolutely. We're stoked to play anywhere. And that was awesome for like the first year and a half that we were doing that. Somewhere along the way there is when I decided that I was going to get sober, because I realized I was really having some trouble with my voice, honestly, early on. I was having a lot of trouble singing. And I think it was due to a number of different things, starting with, you know, shifting from doing like 30-minute opening band throw and go sets to doing 4 hours is like super hard on the voice. Even having Maddie in there and Caleb sing some songs too, still I was having trouble with my voice. That's part of the reason that I actually got those two in the band to begin with when I was doing the cover band thing, is because I was like, there is no way. I was already having trouble. I'd done some cover band shows previous to that, and I was already having trouble with my voice. So I was like, I'm going to have to get some other singers. I'm going to want a girl singer to kind of make the brand, you know, the guy girl thing, multiple singers. That's cool. So, you know, we pushed at that. And like I said, after about a year, I decided that I was going to get sober, because it was really the main reason I did that was because it was affecting my voice. I obviously like wasn't proud of the way I was acting, and it was obviously affecting my work and my relationships with people. But the main reason that I really quit drinking was because it was having a major effect on my ability to sing. And I basically came to this point where I was like, if I don't stop drinking, it's either music or drinking. And it's like, as soon as I kind of had that realization in my head, that's been, anytime that I have any kind of question about it, that's the thing that I have to bring forth in my mind. And it's an easy question at that point. But I got sober at that point, and we started to kind of like refocus as a band. I think, you know, everybody kind of stopped drinking as much, and we all kind of got more serious about the music, more serious about the brand, our sound, what we look like on stage, you know, what our show looks like, how our show flows, like song to song, just everything. And we started to get a little bit better at that. And then we had,
yeah, that stuff gets me excited. The good stuff, man.
Dude, and that's the stuff that they, you know, as soon as you start learning that stuff, you will start to have success in this. Once you start to learn like the ins and outs of those little intricacies. So we were starting to learn that kind of like right around the year. We'd all kind of got more serious about our personal lives, but also like our lives as musicians and stuff. And then we had this like one pivotal show. It was out at Shady Gators out in Lake of the Ozarks. And it was on Labor Day, which is supposed to be like the biggest lake day, party day. And this is one of the biggest lake spots, if not the biggest lake party spot. I mean, this is where, you know, the college age people go and party, and it's the spot. And I'd actually played this spot there earlier with my buddy Johnny's band, the Well Hungarians. And I'd played there 2 years previous on the same day. It was like a rager, like so many people, you couldn't even walk through the crowd. Well, anyway, fast forward to when we're starting to figure stuff out, and we go play there, and we're still playing songs that are like what we like to hear, kind of like the Beatles, and like, you know, I'm trying to think back to what else we were playing back then, Marshall Tucker Band, and like just some kind of classic rock stuff that we were really into, that, you know, good song, good feel good music, but not like the upbeat club party stuff, you know? So yeah, when we got to Shady Gators, you know, I'm thinking like, I just played this venue like 2 years ago with my buddy's band, and they smashed it. So like my band, we're a young band. We're going to come in here. We're going to smash this place. It's going to be awesome. And we went there on the biggest, you know, lake day of the year, and just absolutely ate it. And it's because, you know, we started playing, and there was a few people on the dance floor. I've been there, man. Yeah. And it was honestly one of the most humbling feelings as a musician and in this career, just to like, that was probably, I've had a few moments in my career that were like, okay, time to reevaluate certain things. But that was definitely like the first major moment where I was like, okay, you need a major pivot from what you're doing right now to make this. So was it the thing that
did they kick you off stage, or did the crowd just like stare you down the whole time? They're like, who the fuck are you guys? Kind of, what was that part like?
So basically it was supposed to be like 4 hours and I think 2 breaks. We played our first set, which was like an hour and 15 minutes, and like nobody was on the dance floor. And I was like, what is going on? I even asked the like police security guard lady who was there. I was like, what is the deal? Like, do we suck, or like, what's up with this? I don't know what's going on here. And she was like, no, you guys are doing great. Like, I don't know. This is usually like one of the biggest nights for us, whatever. Well, then the GM of Shady Gators came up to me, and he's a great dude. And he very, very kindly said to me, and I mean, I totally understand why he's saying this is one of the biggest nights of the year for him. He's got to have people on the dance floor and people coming in the door and partying. He can't have an empty dance floor. And so he said to me very nicely, he's like, hey man, you're going to have to pick this up or we're going to have to probably pull the plug. So then I kind of panicked and I was like, all right, we got to start playing some more upbeat stuff. But I didn't really have that much upbeat stuff. I had like some Blink 182 and like, you know, that lit song that's like, my car was in the front yard or whatever, you know, like I had a few of those that would like maybe get it going for like 30 minutes, you know, but then I was going to have to go back into like stuff that was going to be sleepers. So we played that night and then we were supposed to have like, I think 2 days off and then play there. It's called NFT, which stands for No Effing Tourists, which is basically like, it's the end of the lake season. Everybody goes home and it's all the people who actually live at the lake come out and like do one party on Tuesday, all the bartenders and stuff. So it's also supposed to be a pretty big deal. Well, we were scheduled to play for that. And at the end of the show on that Saturday night, after we had bombed on Labor Day, he was like, dude, like, you got to promise me that you're going to come in with something better than this, or like, we're going to have to cut it short. I'll still pay you, but like, you know, I really got to have something that's going to work for what I'm trying to do. And, I was like, all right, man. So I called Austin Reed and I called Joseph Ranahan and like, you know, a couple other musicians that I thought were badasses that maybe had a few other songs that the band knew that they could lead that would like, you know, really bring the heat or whatever. And we ended up getting cut short, I think like 2 hours that night. And he was like, the owner was super nice about it. He was like, honestly, man, you guys did good. I'm just going to have the DJ go and, you know, I'll have you guys back and, you know, it's all good. And I basically, after that weekend, I was like so disappointed in myself. I was like, man, like it was the first time that I'd faced defeat.
I smile, just so you know, I'm only smiling because I know the pain, man.
I'm sure
we
you
had
do.
a pinnacle night just like that on the road. And that's the only I'm not making fun of you, just so you know. I'm smiling because I'm like, I remember that's pain, man.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, it was like, it's not just pain of like you failed, you know, because when you're invested in this, it's like, man, what am I even doing right now? You know what I mean? Am I doing this right? Or is this even what I'm supposed to be doing right now? So it was a whole, you know, big moment for me. But really what I had realized was I needed to change what I was kind of doing. Funny enough, the guy who had gotten me that gig, his name was Johnny Holzum. You know, this guy who lives out in St. Louis has a band called the Well Hungarians. He's a great friend of mine, great mentor, has taught me a bunch about how to do this. Yeah, dude, that is one of the best band names of all time. And the whole time I went out there and did a show at the same place with them 2 years previous to that and like did a whole weekend's worth of shows. Somehow ended up in that gig. That's another story I'll have to tell you sometime. Shout out to Chad Borkwin for getting me that gig. Anyway, Johnny, yeah, I didn't even understand the name like the whole weekend that I played with them. I was like, Well Hungarians, what does that mean? Well Hungarians. And then as soon as I got home, I was like, that is so funny. So but anyway, Johnny is an awesome dude, great mentor of mine. And he just over the years, like when I first met him, his message to me was basically like, Ryan, you have to stop playing the music that you think is awesome. You have to stop playing what you think is cool because you are a, you know, at that time, 25-year-old guy who listens to like, and you're a musician. So like, you're not even going to listen to the popular stuff. You're going to want to listen to cool stuff where it's got cool guitar riffs, where you can appreciate the musicianship of it. And unfortunately, that is not the general of people. Like the general of people are listening to like pop music and country and, you know, Morgan Wallen and Taylor Swift and Post Malone and, you know, bunch of different other genres, but not like the classic rock. And maybe there is a generation that listens to that, but it's not the places that I'm trying to play. He said, where you're trying to play, the music that you need to play to is to the age group of 21 to 35-year-old people, which is what's on the radio right now, what's modern, you know. And the first few times,
and a bunch of people who just want to like dance all night and you know, like they're looking for someone to take home. They're just looking to party. And
they just want something that goes like this, you know what I mean? And that they can move to. And dancing is different than it used to be in the old days. They can grind
on each other and call it good.
And people used to be able to get down to the old school stuff. Like in the 70s when that stuff was popular, people would dance to that stuff. But now it's like when you play that in a club full of young people, they're just going to clear out. So I kind of had to adjust my set. And like I said, the first few times that he told me that, I didn't really realize what he was talking about. It wasn't until I played this Shady Gators gig that I was like, okay, I know exactly what he is talking about now. I need to like throw out all of the Beatles, throw out all of the Marsh Tucker. Unfortunately, I love that stuff. I appreciate the musicianship of it. I think it's great music, in a lot of ways better written music than a lot of the stuff that I end up playing now, but it's just not what's hitting with the crowds at the clubs that I was wanting to play or the bigger venues that I wanted to play. So after that Shady Gators gig, we readjusted our set. We said, we're going to get on backing tracks. We're going to start playing pop. We're going to start playing country. The reason we got on backing tracks is because we're going to start doing a lot of that pop stuff, which required like synths and things that we didn't have on stage. So we started doing backing tracks just on like kind of a few of the songs during the set. And that worked for a while. And then as we kind of went more and more, we started integrating the backing tracks more and more to the point where just everything got on the backing tracks. And then we were rolling. Like at that point, we started rolling. We linked up with Tin Roof and got a show there. And that was like the first show where we really kind of pushed the backing tracks and like this new brand that we had. And it just went out of control at Tin Roof. It was awesome. There was a ton of people there. And we, after that show, you know, had started to kind of roll with Tin Roof, get on the road with them, do some more of these bigger kind of like party band shows, things like that. For probably about 2 or 3 months there, I'd say. Started to get into kind of link up with the wedding industry people out in Kansas City as well, like Jukebox Media, Generation Relevant, Twice on Sunday, all those groups. We started to kind of work with them on some weddings and some bigger events as well. And then like kind of in the middle of the year, last year, Caleb and I kind of got into a dispute about the direction that we were going with our music careers. And I think Caleb kind of wanted to go pursue other projects. And I was looking for somebody that was going to be like my guy, the guy who was going to be there to work on this project with me and like, you know, be available for every weekend. We're going to be doing Friday and Saturday, you know, some Thursdays, maybe some Sundays. Like, so we kind of had a little disagreement about the direction that we were going in that and ended up parting ways. And that was super tough for me, honestly, because Caleb was somebody that, when I brought him down to Kansas City, we didn't really know each other very well. We had met through, I went to military school, and oddly enough, his dad was my teacher out there. And then he ended up being friends with somebody who was in my class and living with that person. So we met through like that kind of connection and that tree of like just people. And when I needed a bass player, I hit him up and I was like, hey man, like I have a room in my house. I would love for you to come down and play bass in my band. I'm going to do this cover band. I know you sing, so, you know, I would love for you to play bass and come down and sing in this band. And then through like the 2.5 years that he lived with me and we worked on this band together, we became super close friends. You know, we partied together. And like I said, through the first year, we went hard together. And then through the second year, I feel like we really matured as men together, both of us. And I feel like we worked on ourselves as musicians as well and kind of figured out what we wanted in our careers, which ended up, I think, being different things. You know, Caleb wanted to do what he wanted to do, and I wanted to do this band thing, go for the corporate lane, go for the big events, making money. And I think Caleb is more into like doing the jams and working with a lot of different musicians and pursuing more of like the artist side of the music. And it sucked because it ended in kind of in turmoil, unfortunately. I think through, you know, what's been I don't know, I think it's been over a year now that Caleb and I have not been working together. I was able to realize that is probably what's best for both of us. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, I wasn't going to be able to keep him around doing what he didn't want to do. And that was just, it was starting to honestly kind of make things clash in the band, I think, a little bit. And, you know, I have a lot of fault in that, like a ton of fault in that, honestly. I mean, my responsibility would definitely be that in those times, like I said, I think I developed early on a drive to just be like, go all the time and want to be the best and just like never take no for an answer and always want to do things, you know, ahead of the game, things like that. But I also, in a lot of ways, lack preparation. So I would like come into gigs where it's a big wedding and I'm not that I'd be underprepared for it. Like I just wouldn't have anything together, but I'd be like kind of plugging stuff in and my sound system wouldn't be like all set up where it was an easy setup. It's a pretty complicated setup. So, you know, when we're getting started setting up, they're asking me like, how do I do this? And I would kind of snap at them like, oh, dude, I've told you this like 3 times. Like, how do you plug it in right there? You know, it's pretty simple. And so there were moments where I would get frustrated and then that would just kind of lead to, you know, little disagreements between me and Caleb. So there was some stress on that relationship, honestly, leading up to that for a long while. And I think it just ended in, we were both trying to do different things. And like I said, unfortunately it ended in turmoil, but that really weighed on me for a long time. Like I said, because Caleb was a great friend of mine who, you know, helped me along the way to mature as a person, helped me figure out a lot about this band and, you know, what I wanted to do and helped me grow the project from the beginning. When I started doing this cover band, honestly, Caleb was the one who was who was in it with me. So, and then it kind of shifted.
Well, and I think that's what makes bands so hard sometimes, is because you typically, it's like you're merging business with deep friendships, and you spend so much time creating together, you get so close. Because
Right.
I've definitely had those pieces too, where people have left, run with it throughout the times. Like right now, Daniel and I are the only ones that have been for a very long period in the band.
Right.
And it does make it really hard. And
Yeah.
it is hard because usually the business is not forefront when you get started. But then when you start seeing the business piece of it, you're like, oh shit, we have expectations, we have direction, we have, but then also, like you said, it sounds like for you, learning some of those leadership skills, and which I've fucked that up multiple times along my career as well. It does. I think that's something, you know, some of my friends who are in the band world or in the music world, it's like I think sometimes they have the perspective, like, I just go out and party with my friends on the weekends.
Right.
And
right.
it's like, no, like there is this aspect of fun and camaraderie, but man, if you're doing it for real, if you're really making a living and paying your bills like you and I are with it, it can cause a lot of tension and a lot of strife.
You got to get serious about
hard.
it at some point. And, you know, everybody's got their viewpoint on what direction they think they want things to go. And some people work better together with others. Some people, you know, have to be that, like, I'm the one in charge and this is the direction we got to go. And I think really what it comes down to, honestly, with that is setting up a healthy dynamic from the beginning. I want to get to that. Like when I talk about kind of what I'm doing now is like kind of setting up more healthier dynamic where you can still have a friendship with your bandmates, but also like, and it's two-faced. Like there's, so yeah, but after the kind of the Caleb situation where he had kind of decided he was going to go do his own thing, that, like I said, that weighed on me a lot. And I kind of had a decision to make there where I was like, well, what am I doing? I was already on tracks. I didn't really know any bass players around. At that point, I really wasn't socializing with a ton of people in town, and anybody that I knew that could play bass was already kind of playing with people. So I'd kind of decided to do what a couple of the wedding bands in town were doing and just put the bass on tracks and run with 2 guitars, Maddie on lead vocals, and a drummer. And that's kind of how we rolled for a long time, honestly, like a year. And then that band, that 4-piece, honestly became way bigger than I even expected it to become in that 1 year. Without Caleb, honestly, I thought at first that we were going to really be taking a major hit. And personally, I did. I mean, like I said, friendship wise, it was very hard on me. But as far as the success of the band went, we just kind of rolled through that, and we just kept going. And then we got to a point where with the band, kind of the same problems that I was having with Caleb started to kind of come up in the band as a whole. At that point, Maddie and I were actually together in a relationship, and we had decided that this is like fast forward to like a year ago. So like November of last year, we had decided that we were going to kind of separate at that point. It was already kind of getting difficult with the band, just to like my want to go with it, me trying to balance professionalism with also having a personal relationship with her, me trying to balance professionalism with having a friendship with the other 2 guys in the band. And then just me trying to balance the whole business with all the stress that I was taking on in that point in my life. Like right when we had done the podcast last year, like you said, I mean, I was doing like 2 different school programs. I was running the band, like doing all this. And I was like in deep with the band at that point. I mean, I was like diving into the tracks. I was programming lights. I was working on promo. I was doing everything I could to like take it to the next level.
Yeah,
so
you guys are hustling, man. I remember that's why I initially started following you, because I think the Champagne just like popped up on my feed one day. And I was like, this looks cool, and it's a hella cool name. So I started following you guys, and I remember like I was like, damn, they're doing some cool shit. And I remember telling the guys at practices and writing sessions, I'd be like, do you guys know this band? Have you been following? Because you guys really were progressing so strong at that point. So.
And it was honestly, it was due to everybody that was in the band, and even everybody that was in the band leading up to that point. Honestly, all of the things that we had learned, all of the failures to that point leading up to that. But being at that pace that we were running at, I mean, we were traveling probably 2 to 3 times a month. We were gigging every single weekend. You know, it was a lot of stress, honestly. And like I said, I had a lot of my own personal stress that I was sorting through just with my own life, with school, with everything. And it kind of came to a head last year when me and Maddie separated, and then we were going to try and do the band for about a month. And we were going to try and make the band work, and that worked for about a month. And then at one point, we were about to go out of town together, and they had all decided that they were going to part ways with me because of the way they felt that I had kind of handled it, which honestly, in full honesty, they're 100% right in that. I handled Maddie and I separating and that whole situation poorly, really poorly. And I think the reason I handled it really poorly is obviously I was upset about Maddie and I separating, but I think really what I realized more is that was probably the end of the band as I knew it, even if we were trying to make it work, like for that 1 month that we were not together, but still gigging together. I think I realized that the band was not going to work at that point, and that was weighing on me really hard. So I was trying to do everything I could to kind of hold the pieces together at that point, and it just was not working out well. I made some decisions or made some mistakes in that area. This is probably one of those things that we'll end up editing out, like that portion where I'm tripping over myself. But I basically like didn't handle that whole situation very well. And it just led to the band deteriorating basically and them deciding that they're going to go do their own thing, which honestly was best for everybody involved at that point. And they started their own group, which they've had a lot of success with. And I, at that point, was kind of left with a moment of, all right, you're in this on your own again. I basically had one person who was in it with me. We were kind of platooning drummers at the time. We had a guy named Curtis, and then we also had Luca, who is my drummer now. And Luca was actually Luca took much less gigs than Curtis. Curtis was like the primary drummer. Luca was just kind of the fill-in guy when Curtis wasn't available for that first year. And so when it all separated, Luca was like the first person I called, and I was like, all right, dude, like it all just kind of fell out, and it's going to be you from now on. If you're ready to take the job, and I'm going to have to rebuild this, but if you're in it with me, man, I'm going to try and do this. And I was saying that to him in like, it was such a weird mindset to be in at that time, because I was like telling him, I'm going to do this. We're going to rebuild it. We're going to rebuild this. But in my head and in my heart, I was like, dude, you are so screwed right now. This is over. It's all done, and that was really what I told myself.
Voice in your head being like, bro, just give up. Just stop.
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
Thing. I know that voice. Fuck that voice, but I know that voice.
Well, and it was probably for like the first, 6 months, that voice was in my head every day, constantly, just like, what are you doing, man? You lost your band. This is over. You're kind of trying to piece together something that you're trying to get back, what you can never get back, But I had Luca, and I was like, all right, I got Luca. We had this New Year's Eve wedding, which was like 2 weeks, after the band had kind of separated. So I had to like kind of piece something together in 2 weeks. I got these awesome singer named Shayla, and then I got my buddy Trey to play guitar for me, who knew a bunch of the tunes that we were already doing. So we came in and we did that, and we did well on the wedding. The bride and groom were super happy with it. It was a New Year's Eve wedding. It was sweet. But even still, like I knew that Trey and Shayla probably were just going to do that show or maybe a couple shows for me, but I knew they weren't probably trying to do this like full speed like I needed. So I had hit up, basically like sent out a blast message to like everybody that I could possibly think of that would possibly be interested in taking this gig. And I knew that I could offer them basically 3 things. And that was 1, consistent pay, good pay; 2, consistent shows, like being booked all the time; and 3, most of the shows that we do are going to be really fun, packed shows that are going to be a really good time. And I basically sent that message out to like, I don't even know, man, 50 to 100 people: bass players, drummers, guitar players, female vocalists, just everybody. And I'd also kind of decided at that point, I'd been talking to Maddie, Caleb, the people that were in my band previous, about kind of in 2024 trying to shift to like more of kind of how the corporate wedding bands do it and get multiple bands going and try and be able to have, at that point, not like go full speed with 2 bands, but have a secondary band that if I were to have like a big event pop up, could go take like a bar show for us and we could go do the big event. So I had already kind of thought that I was going to go for 2 bands. So I was just like, all right, I'm going to hit up as many people as I can with as many positions as I can, just shotgun blast it out there and see who would be interested in working with me. And I had some people that I already knew, like how they played and stuff. And then I had some people where I'd just maybe seen some videos of them on Facebook or whatever. And basically I landed with Aiden Jensen on guitar, and I had known him from like, he grew up in the blues scene out here, and then he had started coming to some of the Cowardly Lions jams at John's Big Deck, and I just met him through this guy named Chris Burke out here, who was a great friend of mine, and we got together on a jam. So I had known about him and got him kind of started with the band. His first show was in Indianapolis. I kind of cycled through a couple bass players. The hardest part was getting a female vocalist, Because, I mean, honestly, Maddie was an incredible singer. So those are some pretty big shoes to fill. And just getting a female vocalist to work with a group of guys that are trying to travel consistently is kind of hard, especially when you don't know them. Just to kind of build that trust factor of, like, hey, we're not a bunch of weirdos that are just like trying to take you out on the road,
She's like, yeah, but
exactly.
You might be. So
it's like,
we're going to test this shit out for a minute.
It doesn't matter how well this pays, sir. Like, honestly, there's so, but yeah, so that was
like, you got to
difficult.
build that rapport and show like who you actually are, where that trust can be built.
And that was hard because
nuanced.
I felt like most of the girls that were like at the level that I needed, like maturity wise, but also like singing wise, and maturity wise, like age wise and stuff. Like, I didn't want to get somebody who was like freshly 20 or 21. I felt like that would just be kind of an inappropriate thing. So I wanted to get somebody who was like, well into their 20s, kind of had their voice about them, not somebody who was like brand new to singing, somebody who knew what they were doing. And I also, felt like Maddie's shoes were kind of big shoes to fill. So I needed somebody who had kind of a strong voice. We do a lot of different styles. So I needed somebody who could hit the range of music that we were trying to do. So for the first, I would say like in January to February of last year, I was like, you know what? When I started this band, I was the lead singer of this band, and I don't even need to have other singers in this band. It can be all me, and I can do this. And I very quickly figured out, after doing like 2 4-hour shows back to back and just absolutely ripping them, that I couldn't even talk the next day. And that ended up being like a vocal complication.
That's terrible,
for months.
Those 4-hour nonstop ones.
Dude, especially with that time.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, you're good. No, they are. And especially with the set that I had chosen at that time, I was kind of on my heels. Like, I was not trying to slow down. When the band had fallen apart, I was trying to put it back together and not slow down, because this is the only money that I have. So like, if I stop gigging, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. So I was like, I can't slow down at all. I need to keep going. So I didn't really have time to kind of evaluate my set list in a way that would be like healthy for my voice. So I was just going with like pop songs and like, all right, here we go. Put them in the record key, because that's what's going to be easiest for people to learn. So like, not even the key that's best for my voice, just go for it. And the first weekend of shows, it was good. But by the second show, I was already having trouble. The day that we were driving home, I couldn't even hardly talk. And I immediately was like, I'm going to need to come up with a new game plan. And that was like the first weekend of shows after I was like, all right, I'm going for it. It's all me. And I was like, nope. Okay. Got to decide now that I got to probably get another couple singers in this band. So like I said, I had Luca, I had Aiden, I had like bass players that were rotating through, some drummers that would rotate through, and I'd move Luca over to saxophone sometimes. It was cool. We had some cool kind of iterations of the band at that point. But then through my like shotgun blast thing, I had also like reached out to this bass player named Max Penachet, who he worked with Chad Borkwin like a long time ago. And I had seen him play with Chad, and I was like, man, this guy on the bass is killing it. So when I hit him up doing this shotgun blast, I thought, there is no way that this dude is going to do my band. Like, he is probably way out of my league as far as like playing ability goes. But I was like, at this point, I have nothing to lose, so why not? I hit him up, and he basically, it took him, I think, a few weeks to get back to me, but he said, hey, man, I'm probably down to do this. Send me the dates, and I'm down. And at first, he kind of jumped on board and like started just doing what gigs in Kansas City he could. And like from the first gig, I was like, dude, this guy is one of the best bass players I've ever heard. And he just like locked it in.
It's a good feeling when you get on stage, you look over and they start playing, you're like, yeah.
Like dude, from like the first song, like 2 songs in, and you're just like, dude, this is it, bro. This is it. Yeah. So, dude, and honestly, there's never been a moment since those first 2 songs that I've even questioned it. Like, he is 100% one of the best bass players that I've ever met. And he's such a great dude too. But he started taking gigs with us, just kind of on the like, I'll take what I can. And, this is kind of a gig for me that I can pick up. He's also a worship leader. So like, he had that whole thing going. And so he was just taking whatever gigs that he could. So we started kind of rolling with that. He started kind of become more stable as my bass player, but I still needed a female singer. So then we were going down to Arkansas to play a Tin Roof show. And it was me, Aiden, and Luca. I was thinking about getting, a 4th member guy, like a bass player, or like, a keys player or something to fill that 4th spot, because I knew I needed to come with 4 people. And then I had remembered, like, looking on the website, there was this girl that was supposed to be opening the show, because they have like acoustic openers or whatever. And her name was Leighton Robinson. And I remembered that she actually opened the acoustic show the previous time that I went down to Fayetteville with Maddie and Wes and all them, which was like, maybe 4 months previous. And I had seen her sing and I thought she was awesome. I mean, I thought she had a great voice. She usually, for those acoustic shows, they have a decent crowd sometimes, but she had like the room full of like just college age girls cheering her on because it's out there in Fayetteville, like right by the university. So she had like this whole group of like girls just cheering her on during her solo set. And I was like, she's really got control of the room. She sings great. She's got good personality in between songs when she's talking. And then I had kind of forgot about her until I was planning on this Fayetteville show, this past February or whatever. And when we were going to go down there and I needed that fourth member, I was like, and I'd seen her on the website that she was opening for us. I was like, man, I should just reach out to her and see if she'd be interested in even just like doing a couple songs. Honestly, whatever she'd want to do would help my voice. We had 3 shows down there. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to make
please,
it.
Just pick up like 10 minutes.
If you do 2 songs, honestly, I'll be good. So I sent her a message on Instagram because she had followed our band's Instagram a couple months previous when we were down there. And I was like, hey, Leighton, our female singer's not going to be with us for this trip. Would you be interested in doing some songs with us? I'd be cool if you took 2 songs. I'd be cool if you wanted to take like a set where we kind of put you in the middle, or I'd be cool if you want to do literally the entire 4 hours with us, just kind of alternating songs with me, and you can do all 3 days with us. And she was like, hey, I'm good to do all 3 days. I'm super down. Like pretty much immediately responded with, I'm down. Like I'm good for that. And
that's awesome.
I think like maybe the week before we were supposed to go down to Fayetteville, we were supposed to play one show in Kansas City too. And it was like in the middle of a snowstorm at the end of January. And I messaged her that week and I was like, hey, would you honestly want to come down to Kansas City and play the Kansas City show with us just to get ready for Fayetteville? And she was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so she drove up in like the snowstorm and we played Kansas City. Smash. Dude, her first show, she absolutely killed. Her voice was on point, stage presence killed, just her whole vibe was awesome. And I was like, okay, like maybe we can awesome, work man. With this, So, but at that point, I didn't know if she was going to be down to do the shows. So then we had the next weekend of shows in Fayetteville. And when we were down there, I remember telling her mom, I was like, tell Leighton to take more shows with us. Tell her to take more shows with us, please. Because I need her.
You're like, I now have a master plan and I need your help.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, now I can see the pieces starting to come together. Aiden came in on the guitar with like, from the first practice, I expected Aiden, honestly, because he comes from the blues scene and he's a cool guy, man, who's like, kind of hard to approach because he doesn't really talk a whole lot. And so until you get to know him, and then he'll talk your ear off. But he doesn't really talk a lot when you first meet him. So he's kind of hard to approach. So I didn't know, same thing with him, whether reaching out to him, whether this would kind of be his speed or not. And he decided, that he was going to invest some time into this. So from the first practice, he just was like nailing the parts and not just like jamming them. He had the leads down and like, so everybody just kind of fell into place and everybody started, rolling. And then it still took me, probably 3-4 months to get the female singer thing worked out. Like I still had to do quite a few gigs with it where it was just me singing. And then Max, who our bass player, started to get rolling with us. He just mentioned to me kind of casually, he was like, hey man, my wife, she sings in the church and like does backing vocals and she's a great singer. She's never done like the lead thing before, but she could do this. She could totally do this. And I was like, dude, at this point, I've seen the way you play bass. So if you say she's good, like she's got to be good. So we started getting his wife rolling with us. And she came in and just like from the jump fell right into place and then just took as many gigs as she possibly could. And then all of a sudden it was like I had a full band again and I had it rolling again. And then when we would go out of town, we would do shows with Leighton. And when we were in town, we would do shows with Max and his wife Cameo. And I kind of realized then I was like, okay, like I can kind of get up off the ground on this one, get off my back, if you will, and kind of get rolling with it again. So that was like a really pivotal moment in those first like 6 months where I was just kind of every day questioning, like, what am I doing? Is this going to work? Is my voice going to last? Like, am I even going to be able to sing into my late 30s with the way that I'm putting stress on my voice right now? Am I going to get a female singer who can do this?
So many great questions in that, because it's a scary thing where like I've actually damaged my voice twice in my career. One time it was like full notes just gone in my break. And then just recently I've been singing in another band, and sometimes, so I have painstakingly, for anything I do, I've painstakingly found the right keys that fit my voice. And I refuse to sing anything in my band or my solo stuff that doesn't fit. But I've been in another band that I don't really have a lot of control over the arrangements, and I was pushing myself again, and I noticed all of a sudden I started losing, not fully, but I started losing some of those notes in my break again. So I even had to tell them, like, hey, I can't do this song unless we change it, kind of thing. Like, and I respect what I came into what I wanted to respect. Like, you guys have built something. I'm just here helping. But I had to be like, I got to protect this because it is literally how I pay my fucking bills.
Totally.
You know, and that's so scary in it. So yeah, you're definitely wrestling with all those great questions. And then, like, for you bringing in, that is one piece where, like, run with it. I've kind of solidified as like, I am the front man. Now, Paul, for longer gigs, Paul, our keyboardist, he's a front man in his own right, but so he'll take some songs, but generally I'm typically the only one. But having those multiple ones, especially those with no breaks, bro, the 4-hour ones, woo,
yeah, well, and man, honestly, the way you do it with putting the songs in the right key, that's the way it should be done. I do that with certain songs. Like, I'll take them to lower keys. Like, we do Sugar We're Going Down by Fall Out Boy, and I put that in C because there's no way I'm going to take that in the record key.
Yep, that's my key. Yeah, I tried it in a normal. I was like, fuck no.
Yeah, especially
and if it doesn't work, if we can't find the right key, we just throw it out. I'm like,
exactly.
We'll find another song people can sing.
There's millions of songs. I know you might be attached to that one because you're like, I really love this song, but it's like there are millions of songs that are going to hit just as hard, and it's not worth blowing your voice out over. That's another thing that I, over the years have struggled with a lot, is just getting my voice right and getting to the point where I, can sustain those shows. I feel like every level there's like a new challenge. Like, at first I was singing 30-minute sets, and I was like even having trouble getting through those. And then I figured out how to do that. And then I went to the cover band realm where it was like, okay, now it's 4 hours. And then I was having trouble doing that, but I had some other singers with me, figured out how to kind of do that with multiple singers. And then there was like okay, now you have no other singers with you. You got to do it by yourself. And I still haven't gotten to the point where I feel like I can really do that. I mean, I could get through, maybe one show like that, but I'm going to need a good amount of rest.
Have you done voice lessons?
I think about it.
Have you ever done voice lessons?
I honestly, voice lessons is something that my whole band is like on me. They're like, dude, you need to go see, a voice therapist or a specialist.
From what you're describing to me. Yeah. I think from what you're describing to me. So I have my degree in like singing. And so
really?
Like all the nuances and everything, basically my vocal teacher was an opera guy. And he basically told me from when I walked in, cause I was in the same spot in my early 20s where I couldn't get through like, 30-minute sets. And he even asked me one day, he's like, are you a smoker? And I was like, no, blah, blah, going through all these things. Cause he was like, the way that you sound is as if you smoke a pack a day. Anyways, he stripped my voice down, stripped my technique down to like the ground, and then helped me build it back up. And that's where, because that's even when I've damaged my voice, that's where I knew, because I was like, I'm doing the right techniques. So that's why I knew I'm pushing it beyond. It's like, but it sounds like for you, getting those techniques will help you have a longevity. Because in reality, you should. So like I've sang the Tin Roof gigs on my own for 4 hours and done that. It's not something I want to do, and it's terrible on the voice, even with proper technique. But yeah, getting those basics, your diaphragm, placement of your voice, how to sing with power but sing light at the same time. All these, and it takes a long time to develop. But man, I would encourage you to do it, especially if you're having that many issues, because you're obviously a brilliant artist and creating something really cool. I'd hate to see your voice go out, because eventually, like, that's where you see like these guys like Bon Jovi can't even sing.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I know, it's a shame.
From what I hear, he has to like when halfway there, he has to just like hold the mic to the crowd, because he's like, I got nothing, bro.
Yeah, and he doesn't, man. And that is something, honestly, that it played into my like depression in a way in this last year, was the battle with my voice. I feel like I'm just now literally getting back to a point. I injured it early on in the year. I don't know exactly when, but it was in the first 3 months of doing shows, January through March, of just absolutely going ballistic on the shows and not having a second vocalist. But I feel like I'm
Right.
just now getting to the point where I am kind of getting healthy again with my voice, and I still am kind of struggling through some shows. It's starting to get better and better as it goes, but I agree, man. I really do want to start going to a vocal coach. It's been something that I've been saying for years that I'm going to do. I just need to get around to doing it. So, and honestly, I would love a recommendation on that too. If you have anybody in the area that you know that does coaching.
Yeah, and I don't know anyone offhand. I do think for some reason, I feel like Jessica Page may have been teaching voice,
Yeah.
if you're familiar with her at some point, but I honestly don't know. I know she's a phenomenal vocalist and a trained vocalist, and she's always gigging. So it seems like she's got that longevity, but I'm hard pressed to say. I bet Chad Burquin, actually, he's just kind of the dude who knows everybody.
He knows everybody.
I bet he would be a great resource, because like I don't do lessons anymore, but I still like am researching techniques. But like I said, I spent like 5 straight years nonstop in private studio where they're like, you know, and down the road, I could see like even stopping in with a voice teacher myself just to kind of like have a refresh. Usually when I go in for recording with a producer I'm with, it's almost like voice lessons, because he'll like help me notice like, oh, you're doing this thing wrong again. You're doing this. That's because he's hearing under the microscope. But
that's another thing that I'm trying to get rolling with. When I've done original music in the past, the first album I did with Champagne Campaign was done at Chapman Recording Studios with my buddy Rob Rebeck, who engineered the album. And Rob is an incredible engineer. He did Tech Nine stuff in the early days. I mean, he's worked with everybody in Kansas City. He is a phenomenal engineer, and he has a great sound to the record. But as far as like producer and like somebody that is going to go in and he definitely did give me some critiques on stuff. But as far as like working with a producer that's going to write the song with you and like really develop the song with you, I haven't ever done that in my career. Even the stuff that I have kind of put together recently that's more of kind of solo stuff for me is just all I've written it, I've recorded it, produced it, everything. And so I am talking to some guys in Nashville right now about trying to do like maybe even just one song at the beginning of the year with more of that, like having a producer involved. It should be awesome, man. The way that it all kind of materialized, I was working with this singer named Dylan Wolf, who is a Nashville kind of country artist. He's touring right now. He's on tour with this guy named Drew Baldridge. He's honestly killing it right now. He's on the verge of, I think, blowing up. But I was able to kind of do a couple shows with him this last summer because he was looking for a guitar player. And I basically told him on the front end, like, hey, man, this is probably not something I'm going to be able to do for you full time, but I would love to take some shows for you and get you through while you find your guy who's going to be your lead guitar player. So I went out there and I did, I think, 3 shows with Dylan over the course of like 2 or 3 weekends. And he also had another guitar player out there who ended up being the guy for him. But like during that whole time, I was able to meet him, see kind of how he does his thing, figure out, because he's got great songs and he's always putting out songs. He's got great content. He's like full steam ahead with it. Looks like he's got like a whole team behind him. And then I realized that he doesn't. It's just him. Like he really is putting himself on. But the way he's done it is he went down and he worked with Nashville producers who are kind of giving him direction, not even just direction in the way that they're recording him. I think they even kind of give him direction in how to push his stuff with the marketing and stuff, because they're also invested in those songs at that point. You know, if they've written on them, recorded them, if they're trying to make money on them, they're also going to be trying to push those songs. So they want you to do stuff like music videos, you know, record the TikToks, all the things like that. So he kind of, you know,
start getting it on the back end.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how those guys make their money. So Dylan has that original music and that whole lane figured out way better than I do. He's got great songs, working with great producers. He's touring on his own music. And so being able to go do a few shows with him, I was able to learn a lot from, how he does things and just like how he has his whole operation set up, who he's working with kind of. And now I'm able to talk to some of those producers that he's kind of referred me to. And I'm working on trying to get maybe a song or 2 out in the next year. Hopefully. I mean, it's going to take some doing, man. And I don't want to commit anything.
Well,
yet, but
it's funny because what I'm about to say, because I'm very pro producer, but in Chive, we're actually switching to doing all production ourselves, like recording everything. But at the same time, the producer we worked with previously, like I'm still talking with him like almost weekly and even trying to figure out a way to bring him in almost as a coach as we try to launch out, because I value, especially Josh Gleave is his name, and I value his insight. We have so much trust with each other. And I wouldn't even feel confident to try to produce on my own in this upcoming year if not without working with him over the last like 8 years. I think I learned so much along the way. And then I know I'm building relationships with producers like all over the world at this point now, where I can like, send it to him and say, give me feedback, because I think it's just sometimes we get so wrapped up as an artist in our own thoughts or our own riff or our cool time signature change, whatever thing we thought was cool. And then, to have that person who's like, okay, you said your goals are this.
Right.
So sonically, how do we help you accomplish that? Because you're not,
And that's the thing
it's
that
so valuable.
That's kind of what I am. That's why I want to experiment with a producer, because I've never really worked with somebody that's been hands-on with that. On my first album, like I said, Rob Rebeck would give us some critiques in the studio and kind of make a suggestion of like, oh, I think it should sound like this, but it wasn't the hands-on producer approach. Really, that album was kind of produced by me and then my guitar player, Justin, at the time, who we kind of wrote those songs and had the vision for how they were going to sound. And then any of the stuff that I've done since then, like I said, has just been kind of done by myself. I have a buddy that I record with, but same thing. It's like he's kind of just turning knobs. There's not a whole lot of like production, hey, you should sing it like this, or I think the lyric should be this, or maybe the melody should be this. And that's kind of through going to school through this Berklee songwriting program, I want to dive into the songwriting in like a deeper approach, really start to deconstruct the song, not just sit there and write words on paper and be like, oh yeah, that sounds good. I want to sit there and be like, all right, here's our instrumentation piece. Okay, now what's a melody that we like? No words, just let's hum out a melody that we think is good and catchy. All right, now let's throw some words in there, but let's make our syllables hit where the accents on the syllables is hitting in the right way. Like one thing that they talk about in my school is stressing things properly. There's a song by Katy Perry called Unconditionally, which is improperly stressed. And it's weird. This song ended up, I think, being number one. So it was a big song. But usually songs that are stressed improperly don't sound very appealing to the ear, or they sound unstable at least. They don't sound like, happy songs. The way she says the word unconditionally in the song is unconditionally. And so like she's emphasizing shun instead of unconditionally. And like usually when you would just say the word unconditionally, the syllable that sticks out to you is additionally or addition. So she's emphasizing
the
exactly. It's kind of like Christopher Walken when he's introducing the Foo Fighters, and they're like, well, does the emphasis go on Foo or Fighters? And they're like, well, it goes on Fighters. And he's like, ladies and gentlemen, Foo Fighters. It's like you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. So that's one thing that I'm trying to like really focus on in my writing now is like, is everything stressed properly? Does everything make sense? And like, it's not to say that every single thing needs to be stressed properly in your songs. Cause like I said, there are examples like that Unconditionally song where it works, but maybe you want to use something stressed improperly when the theme of your song is like kind of an uneasy situation or you want your
and that's what I was going to say. It's
match.
like usually when you break the rules, when you break those rules, you want to do it intentionally instead of out of ignorance, where it's like, no, we're actually deciding now for, like you said, to take them off, or we have this dissonance here because we want that angst to drive us then to the bridge or, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah, I think in songwriting that what I've noticed through this class is that I was already doing a decent amount of these techniques, like without even knowing it, just in my writing naturally, like if you have a decent understanding of how you want the melody to sound, like most times your syllables are going to be stressed correctly because you're going to sing it how you say it, if that makes sense. But through like the classes, I've learned how to use these things with intention, like you said, kind of not out of ignorance, but more like, okay, if my song feels like it should be uncomfortable, then maybe I'll stress something improperly, or then maybe I'll change the chord progression to kind of a chord that sounds uncomfortable here. But like, that's how I'm kind of trying to approach songwriting now, is really making the music, making the lyrics, the melody really match kind of the story of the song, having more of a story to my lyrics to begin with, just all of that. So,
dude, I love that. And it's really cool, man, to hear, we were texting earlier, but just talking about the idea of owning, like going back to the beginning of the story when we kind of first started talking, like developing our friendship, you were going through that hard space, but then to zoom out, take this ownership and say, here are all my faults. Here are all the things that my missteps. And then now over, seeing you rebuild it and then seeing this other piece, the original side kind of bloom as well. But, unfortunately I got to leave soon, but I wanted to talk about more like now in this ownership and as you're leading this band, you hinted at it earlier, but now you're building in, it sounds like healthier habits for yourself personally and for the band. What are some of those things that you feel like with the band you're building in off of what you've learned in this journey?
I'll give you a quick wrap because I know you got to be quick. But I definitely feel like, through those failures over the last year, which there were a lot of them, I learned a lot. Honestly, I learned a lot about myself as a person. I learned a lot about my own, I was able to test my own mettle in a way and figure out kind of what my own strength and merit is. But I also learned that, there were probably some things that I needed to reevaluate about myself that caused those people not to want to work with me in the past. And I think primarily that was how I went about pushing people, what my drive was, how to focus my drive more in a constructive way rather than a way that is deconstructive to people or, comes across as I'm upset at you. Learning how to communicate with people better, learning how to be more prepared on my own front end, going into gigs with the scheduling, with the set list, with setup, all that stuff, just to eliminate stress on the front end. Those are all big parts of learning how to do this, the right way. And I still feel like I'm learning with it every day. With my new group, I feel like I have a dynamic set up now where we're all friends, but also they all recognize, me as the leader of the group, and that if I'm going to make the decision, that's the way it's going to go. And they all respect that dynamic too, which is awesome because it's honestly the first time that I've been able to have that dynamic set up where I feel like I've got the vision and I know which direction we're going, and they're just kind of all behind me, supporting me. And when I need somebody to step up and do something for me, they're there for me. But at the same time, there's not a whole lot of argument about oh no, I don't think this is what we should do. They just kind of all trust that, I know the direction that I want to go with this, and I've got the vision. So I think in retrospect, honestly, as hard as this last year was, man, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me to have to go through rebuilding the band, learning those things about myself, learning how to interact with people better, learning how to set boundaries in my life with work and friendship, learning how to stay home more instead of going out and hanging out at all the jams and be, not that I don't love being around the music people, but having more of my own personal life, and finding balance to all those things. It was super important. So I think those are all big learning lessons in the last year.
Now, let's say right now someone is just starting up a band and they really haven't done it before. Now, after all the lessons, the things you've learned, what advice would you give to them as they're getting started now?
I would say if you're trying to do it to make money, the first way you got to do it is play covers. So get over the fact that, cover band might not be the cool thing to do amongst you and your buds that are just out of high school. But if you want to do it and the smart way to do it, honestly, is to start playing covers young and make money while you're young and learn how to figure out the ins and outs of the business while you're young, because the cover band realm will teach you that too. And then if you're passionate about it, either through producing it yourself or working with another producer, start writing your own tunes, start figuring out the way that you're actually supposed to write tunes. I did it through going to school, but you can do it through watching videos on YouTube. There's so much access to information out there about how to write songs and how to do anything now that, look up how to do those things and learn how to write songs with intention, how to make things work the way that you want them to, so your songs can start to sound the way that you want them to. And then once you have your cover band going and you got your songs that are sounding the way you want them to, you'll have some money coming in from your cover band, and you'll be able to push those songs to your audience that you've built through your cover band. And I think that would probably be my best advice for anybody starting off young, is go for it, but learn how to do it in a way that's smart, because there is a way to do it and make money. Do not be fooled by the lie that you have to not make money and do this and pay your dues of just dogging it out at the bottom level forever, because you don't have to do that. You can make lots of money doing this if you get smart about it. So
yeah, that dark romance of the starving artist. I bought into that shit. We talked about that a lot in our last podcast, our last episode. Yeah. But yeah, I bought into that for so long.
A lie.
And to piggyback on that for anyone who's listening and in that same spot, I was there too, where I didn't want to do those covers. But what I've found is the more songs I learn from other people, the better songwriter I become.
Exactly.
Because, man, you're picking up amazing stuff from the best hits in the world.
And that's, I was talking about the schooling and looking up stuff on YouTube, but that's probably the best way to learn songwriting right there, is to play the songs that other people are writing, to play the hits, because then you're going to learn this riff, it's repeating. And okay, so, oh, well, there's a bunch of repeating riffs in this. So maybe people like it when people repeat stuff a lot. Or, oh, this chord progression, when you hear this song, it sounds like it's this crazy chord progression, but then you realize it's just really a bunch of elements layered in. It's super simple. So yeah, I think, that's a huge benefit to the whole cover band thing too, is like realizing the way that people have written songs and maybe what works for them, starting to discover kind of the intricacies of the songs that you're playing. I think that's huge.
Well, for the last two questions, and since you've been on such a crazy journey since your last episode, I'm curious now to hear your answers versus where you were previously. But yeah, last two. Right now in your life, how would you define living a great life?
Yeah. And in retrospect, looking back at our last interview, I definitely want to make sure I hit these with some really solid answers too. So how would I define living a great life? I would say, honestly, man, it's going for what makes you happy, finding your ultimate peace, whether that is on your own with a ton of people around you, with a few people around you, or in complete solidarity, finding your own peace and then going for what makes you happy and trying to leave out, what do people think of me? What does this mean for even tomorrow? Honestly, living for today and living for the things in your life that you feel passionate about. I think that's living a great life and just going for it. And honestly, like I said, the most important part about that for me in retrospect that I left out last time would be doing it while you're doing it with peace, finding your own peace, finding your own happiness, finding your own acceptance of yourself and who you are, because then nobody will be able to take that away from you.
That's huge, man. Well, and for the last question right now, how would you define creating great things?
I would define creating great things as starting with something that you're happy about and watching that creation blossom into something. And along the way, I think that creation is going to take shape in a lot of different ways. If it's a song, it might, change the lyrics or the melody here or there. If it's your vision for your band, you might have a couple different members or a different route. Maybe you started going for the wedding industry and now you want to do clubs or, whatever. But really having something you're passionate about and just going for it and letting it mature in the way that, the universe is going to influence, but also with your own drive. You can influence your own creation, and the furthest that you push it is the furthest that it's going to go. I think, like I said, just kind of starting with that simple creation, pushing it forward and letting the universe kind of play its role in there too, to influence a little bit and seeing where it goes.
I love that. The furthest you push is the furthest it's going to go. I've never heard it said that way. That's really cool, man. Well, let people know how they can connect with you and how they can check out what the Champagne's up to.
Well, I'm Ryan Lynch, so you can find me on the Ryan Lynch at Instagram. And then the Champagne is at the Champagne KC, Champagne on Facebook. It's the champagnekc.com on the .com, and on Spotify and Apple Music, it's The Champagne, and my album from years ago is called Speakeasy, if you want to find that out there somewhere.
That's awesome, man. Well, dude, thanks for coming back. It's been exciting.
Thanks for having me, bro.
What's been going on. I'm excited to see 2025, man.
Me too, man. I'm excited to see 2025 for you guys, man. I know we didn't talk a whole lot about Run With It, but you guys are absolutely killing it right now, and it's been awesome to see you guys do your thing and all that take shape. All the guys you got around you are awesome. You got a great team, so I'm excited for you guys as well, man.
I'm a lucky dude, man. That's for sure.
You are, man. You are.
Thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.